Welcome to Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Today we are bringing Romulo Lollato. He is an extension agronomist for wheat and forage at the Kansas State University, and he will talk a lot with us today about what he found out at the Kansas Crop Tour. Romulo, how are you today?
Hi, Luis. Yeah, thank you very much for having me here today. I'm doing really well. It's really hot here in Kansas, and that it's a good thing, but it also affects the wheat crop. But doing very well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I would like to know what have you found in the recent days of the tour?
Yeah. So this year we had the quality tour was a little bit later than usual, right? So we had that in about the May 20th time frame, and from there on, we've been traveling quite a bit throughout the state, really trying to have a feeling of how the wheat crop is looking like. So there are several things going on as usually, right? It's within Kansas, so it's a quite a harsh environment there. So there are several things going on that are really characterizing the crop this year. So I guess to start with, we can kind of talk a little bit how were things last fall when everything started, right? When the wheat crop was planted back in September, October, and even November, that time frame. For the majority of the state, we were able to achieve a good stand establishment, right? So overall, central part of the state, perhaps in northwest Kansas as well, the crop was off to a decent start. However, the southwest corner of the state, which is a very important producing region for us in here in Kansas, they were extremely dry. The farmers planted the crop on time. However, there was no precipitation, so that's it just stayed there in the ground all the way until sometime in January when they finally received some precipitation, and then that crop emerged late January, early February. So it's quite amazing how long that seed can stay there, right? As long as there's no, it just doesn't start to germinate, but it stays dry. But the thing is that that really cuts back the yield potential, right? So the yield potential of that crop that emerged in January, based on years and years of research here at Kansas State University, it's about half. It's about 50, maybe 60% of a crop that was emerged in the fall. So the southwest corner of the state already started behind in yield potential as compared to the remainder of the state. So that kind of gives us a snapshot of how things were last fall, right, Luis? And now, as we move along a little bit more towards what happened in the spring, so those dry conditions they in the southwest corner of the state. So that corner was really hammered really hard with this drought, with this very prolonged drought stress that we had since planting, right? So that region continues under drought stress really up to now. We had drought stress also develop in a different part of the region, which was the north central part of Kansas, another very important wheat producing region out there. So really since January up to about May 20th, we were quite a bit behind precipitation in that north central part of the state as well. So those two regions, they were characterizing to either a very prolonged drought stress or a more recent but also very severe drought stress. Uh, on the other hand, the south central part of the state, they were receiving a considerable amount of precipitation. So the crop there never really went through drought stress. Uh, it was looking really good throughout the season, and up to now, it's looking quite good as well. So that's an area that goes more or less, if you know Kansas geography, more or less from that Saline County region in central Kansas, west kind of almost to Russell County, and then south all the way to Sumner County and west to Meade County. So it's a pretty large region where the crop was actually in very decent shape as far as drought goes. So receiving consistent precipitation and with a very good yield potential.
Is how is that going to impact on final production? Do you have any crop estimate?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So that central, south central part of the state, I think the yields there are probably going to be at least on average or above average. If we look back in recent years here, I would expect that region of the state, south central and central Kansas, to be above average in yields there. As we go to north central Kansas, I think they're going to be at best on an average crop, and the reason that is north central and northwest Kansas, right? Those two very important wheat growing regions at best, at best at an average crop, probably not above that. The reason I say that, we talked about the drought stress that developed during the spring, but also they got very hard with a spring freeze damage. So back in April 3rd, April 13th or so, there was a very severe freeze damage. Temperatures got to 8 Fahrenheit or as low as 8 Fahrenheit, and they were below 24 Fahrenheit for a number of hours, right? And so that really hurt because the crop in that region, because that cold damage, it was followed by dry conditions in that specific region, right? So we saw that the crop lost several tillers. It really overall, he lost a pretty good amount of yield potential there. So again, South Central Kansas and Central likely above average if we look back in the records, right? Above average yield potential there. Central or North Central, Northwest, we're likely looking more at an average crop, especially if we have this rainfall that is forecast now for June 9th. If that rainfall comes about, that's going to help the crop out there to be more or less at that average. Southwest Kansas, definitely below average. The drought stress is really severe out there. Back on May 20th on the crop tour, we were doing yield estimates out there, and very often we were seeing yields of 15 bushels per acre or less in a crop that was boot height, right? It was very short, and just a very narrow yield potential there. So I'm probably not going to give you a production estimate there. That's not really what my bread and butter, right? So I'm not really out doing too many yield estimates other than that for the wheat quality tour, which the production came about 280 million bushels more or less. I think that's probably still going to hold true, again, with those geographies in mind, above average in South Central, at best average North Central, Northwest, and below average in Southwest Kansas.
And how does that overall number compare to previous years?
So that number that was estimated by the wheat quality tour there, it was more or less on average. I mean, we have had years when it was quite a bit above that. Even in recent years, we reached close to 400 million bushels of wheat in some of the years, but then we also had years when we were closer to that 230, right? So I think that number is more or less about on average. And again, I think that average was kind of estimated because of that combination of a very good crop in South Central Kansas, but then a crop that went through a lot of damage from the freeze and from the drought in other parts of the state. A couple of things that can hamper that production from here moving forward. We're pretty late already. It's like June 8th today. So a few things that can still happen to the crop and can still hurt our production, right? If we're looking at some forecasts. One of them is disease pressure. So we're seeing quite a bit of stripe rust develop in parts of the state, especially in those parts where the yield potential is good. So that can still hurt because we're late enough. The growers cannot apply a foliar fungicide at this point to be past the label for the majority of the state. So stripe rust could still cause some yield damage and bring that production down. Another thing that we went through, especially last week, was heat stress. So last week and this week, we are having several days where temperatures are going above 80 and above 85 and above 90 degrees. And remember that when temperatures go above those levels, the crop almost shuts down, putting starch in the grain, and starch is really what produces yield, right? So that heat stress in a crop that is slightly behind in development as compared to other years, it can really hurt productivity. So those two things, Luis, will be things that I will be keeping in mind looking forward that can still hurt our production. Whether that 280 is going to be close to where we really end up, those two things can still hurt the production going forward.
Romulo, keep us posted. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much.